Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com. Hello everyone, welcome to another new episode of SciTech Culture, the podcast where we discuss all things science, technology and culture. My name is Ben Warner and I'm joined by my good friend and colleague once again, Steve Kern. How are we today, Steve?
I'm good, thanks, Ben. Enjoying another summer's day.
Yeah, well, cloudy in my case, but it's all good. All right, we'll rip right into it, and I think this episode will go live before this happens. But of course, it's a couple of days until Donald Trump is inaugurated as president of the US, and I don't know. So in looking at some of the media coverage, I mean, there's a couple of specific things we'll look at, like his press conference, etc. But it seems like the hysteria in some ways is kind of dialing up a little bit. There was a story about, anti-Trump protests ready to kick off in Washington. I don't even want to know what the ceremonial walk to the White House, whatever it is, the White House or Capitol Hill or whatever it is that they do, what that's going to be like. I mean, we had the George Bush throwing eggs at his car thing back in 2000, and
That's right.
But what's going to happen with Trump there? Like if they do that to him, and he'll just go on Twitter and say very unfair, or whatever it is that he usually does. There's and we'll look at that a little bit later, but there's other things like for instance, our Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull was met with the Japanese Prime Minister just pretty much right now, and he's basically said that you wonder what those two were talking about in terms of you get this sense that using that as an example, that world leaders are just sort of preparing themselves for what they call the unpredictability of the Trump era. Paul Keating, one of our more flamboyant prime ministers of the past, is basically saying that Australia shouldn't get involved in anything the US is doing with China to make sure we don't get involved in a war there. This is all really just amazing stuff, and you kind of wonder what's going to happen. It's almost is it going to be like a train wreck where you got to look just to see how it turns out, even though it'll turn out terrible? Will it actually turn out to be good? Who knows?
Well, who does know? And I think the big thing is unpredictability. Now, I think
which the world and business and finance markets just love.
But me, as a political layperson, unpredictability is not knowing whether it's going to rain or be sunny in the morning, and just chancing it and going out into a rainstorm in a t-shirt.
Yeah.
But I guess at a political level, there's a political culture that we hear so much about, political elites, et cetera, or as Trump calls it, the swamp, and they all behave in a certain way that everyone expects, and even if they don't like each other, they might argue in Parliament or politically, but they're probably all having beers together back at the parliamentary bar afterwards. Yeah. There's definitely a culture. Trump, as we know, doesn't fit that culture. He might make decisions that benefit his country. He might make decisions that benefit himself. He might make decisions that he just thinks are the right decisions to make. And he doesn't really care how that affects the other political, population. And that's the unpredictability that everyone's scared of. Then we go at an international level, and that probably is a little bit disconcerting, because it's very easy to fracture relations or reposition the sphere of influence for a country simply by not talking to one country or talking to another country too much. So I don't know, your guess is as good as mine there.
So I want to pick up that idea that you just said there about the way they present themselves with each other, and then they might be disagreeing on something, but then they're best mates, and then catching up with a beer afterwards or whatever, because they're all in it together, even if they're on different sides. One indication of just how different this will be was during that press conference that he did, the first one since July last year, apparently, and obviously the first one since he got elected, was that interaction between him and that reporter, where that guy was just basically, you're going to give me a question, and Trump said, no, I'm not giving you a question, and it just went back and forth like that until he just said, you are fake news. And it looked childish, but apart from the fact that it was obviously a very different action that you don't normally see in a press conference with a politician, the fact is that it's disturbingly masterful how he did that, because it's playing right into the hands of him and his anti-liberal elite message that he had from the campaign, and he's just lumped the journalists in with it. And not only did he do it to BuzzFeed, I think was the target of his attack there, but he somehow managed to lump CNN in with it as well. And they apparently weren't as dodgy whatever it is. They weren't as whatever they were reporting wasn't as salacious as what BuzzFeed was. But the fact that he kind of brought them together kind of suggests, is he trying to lump all these people together so that he can attack them a lot easier? And it was
absolutely.
it was just a really well done in a really disturbing way.
Well, I think we have to remember he's at a whole new level. So he's the weed in the garden that the gardener's never seen before and shouldn't be there. The other plants should have smothered him, but he got there. We've said this before. We all know. I mean, he's got very little to hide, really. And even if some of those claims about those sexual, references are true, it's already, whether he pays tax or not, and his views on women and that sort of, they're all out in the open. So typically politicians live or die by public opinion, and that public opinion is shaped by the media. Trump's beyond that.
Yeah.
So he can sit there and he can tell someone to go and get stuffed in the media, and it doesn't matter. It's not going to change what they already think of him. It's not going to change how they report him. They can report him even worse, and that's probably only going to make him even stronger the way things are going. So
yeah.
I think, we heard asymmetrical warfare come in as a term a few years ago. I think this is asymmetrical politics. Well,
even
you can't fight him in the way that people have fought politicians before.
And I think this is where the underestimating of him comes in. It's easy to laugh him off as a clown or a buffoon or whatever, and but he's almost playing to that to get what he wants. It's like he's taking all of the lessons he would have learned in reality TV, and he's bringing it to something that isn't obviously reality TV, and they just don't know how to respond because it's just... Are
you saying it's not reality TV, Ben? Because I can't tell the difference.
But that's the point. Like the journalists are playing by the old rules. He knows how to play it, and they don't, in terms of whatever it is he's bringing to this thing. And it's working. Now, I saw clips like, Michael Moore I saw a couple on YouTube where he's like saying that the media has to do its job, to hold him to account. But what exactly is it that they have to do? They can't just do what they've been doing because it hasn't worked and it won't work going forward. At that press conference, he showed up with, a table full of what appeared to be manila folders and with blank sheets of paper in it, claiming that they're all the documents he signed in business. And it was perfect reality TV show material.
Well, yes, he's definitely he's been on reality TV shows. He understands that medium and he thrives in it. So, as you say, I just don't know if you want to take the guy down. I don't think you can do it through traditional sort of opinion pieces in media.
You have to get him voted off the island somehow.
Wait another 4 years for that.
But all right, well, we'll leave that aside, because there was a whole lot of things about the press conference that were interesting and that's been reported elsewhere. But I thought that was one of the key things that was in there, and it should be interesting to see how that plays out going forward. I just want to return back to Turnbull visiting, the Japanese PM visiting Turnbull and them having a discussion, and the fact that I'm sure it's not just those two, but they're an example of where they've been getting together, these leaders, and just trying to figure out how are they going to react to things. One example, though, is I find China's response to a lot of Trump's recent rhetoric to be quite muted. Like they're not wanting to obviously instigate anything further, but obviously Trump's going there. His Rex Tillerson was out there saying that they shouldn't be making those fake islands out in the South China Sea or wherever it is, and they should be brought to account for it. And China's like saying, yeah, well, we'll sort that out, later. Or, this is all just, we try to work out all these issues with each other, that kind of thing. And I find that an interesting response as well, because in some ways China can have an unpredictable response to things, and but they seem to be, in a way, being the grown-up in the conversation between themselves and him, I guess. I don't know if you'd want to say the whole country against China, but maybe it's just Trump against China.
Well, look, I think it's impossible to tell. I mean, Trump's obviously put people into positions, and the media is whipping up a huge frenzy about what he might do next. And he has said some things such as the Trans-Pacific Trade Agreement, is on the way out and all that sort of thing, which you kind of wish he wouldn't probably say until he was actually president.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's actually going to happen will be another matter. But this constant trialing of Trump before we've actually seen any of him is creating a lot of this angst. Maybe he won't be as bad. Maybe he won't be able to do some of the things that he's saying that don't sound good. But we still haven't seen what he's going to do. And I would have thought as a businessman, really he can talk tough. And, he typically, in terms of the sorts of negotiations that he does, talking tough is, where you have to start. But I don't think he's the sort of guy that wants to accumulate enemies. So who knows? Who knows what the administration will actually be once it's in? I think the media cycle is just hating Trump at the moment.
Yeah.
And maybe there's plenty of things to talk about in terms of him, but as president, we still haven't seen what any of that means yet.
Yeah, exactly. I guess we're going to...
If I was in the swamp in Washington, maybe I would be a little bit nervous.
I guess we're going to find out on the 20th, scant few days away. You got any images of what you can imagine? I guess what you can imagine the inauguration speech and day will be like?
Well, this sort of goes back to last week, but am I going to be watching it on Facebook Live? Are there going to be protesters filming themselves on Facebook Live? Is he going to be tweeting about it live? I think we're entering now a phase of politics in the US, which, the likes of which have never been seen before. I mean, they're even saying now that Zuckerberg potentially is eyeing a presidency sometime in the future. So, I mean, can you imagine?
Anything's possible really now.
I think anything's possible, and maybe that's what everyone's scared of. Politics used to be so polite, so rigid, and so controlled, and now that Trump's there, that's all out the window. And that's probably quite frightening, not just for the people who are in the political class, but for some of us out here in internet land as well.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the day is going to be like, but I suspect, inauguration days obviously take over news cycles anyway, but I'm wondering if this one will take it over for reasons additional to the fact that it's inauguration day.
Let's hope whatever it is, it's a good day.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Steve, we might wrap it up there. So we'll watch this one in earnest. I'm sure we can come back to it, especially over this first 12 months. We'll get a better sense of where all of this is going. All right, so don't forget our website, scitechculture.com. You can get all of our links and content there. You can subscribe to us as well. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Google+. Love to hear from you. We've got our photography on Instagram. So I've been playing around with Pixelmator and coming up with some interesting photos. It's amazing what you can do now with you don't have to rely on Photoshop anymore. Well, not necessarily. And of course, if you have anyone that's interested in these discussions that we have on a regular basis, feel free to send them to scitechculture.com, get them to sign up, and hopefully we can entertain any newcomers that come along. All right, so that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.